evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Oh, okay. Balengobule Samsi. Let me take this opportunity and greet everyone in the name of Jesus. I greet you, brothers and sisters, and I greet you, colleagues, friends, and everyone who might be listening or watching us wherever you are. Welcome to the Wesley Guild SA page. As usual, it's another Wednesday. We're here to learn, we're here to be motivated, we're here to be inspired. So let us all sit back and relax and be comfortable. Hopefully today you'll get something, get a takeaway, something that will develop you, that is something that will inspire you. Without wasting any time, let's get on with it. Oh, by the way, my name is Kapela Majola. Today we have our guest. I'm sure you can all see as a young man, a young gentleman, by the name of Dr. Nkupana. Doc, good evening, sir. Uh, I'm not sure if you are audible to other people, but I can hear you, Doc.
Am I audible now?
Yes, now you are audible, Doc. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, man. How are you? Good evening to you and good evening to everyone else who's joined in online. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm good, Doc. I'm good. Thank you very much. Doc, I'm worried isingesi sakho futhi uyakhumsha manje senikuva nje amagama kuyawaletha amagama esilungu for me. But thank you very much. Futhi masingene kuyo namhlanje abantu basekhaya or viewers, we will be talking about child development. But child development is very broad. So today we'll be talking about prematernal care specifically because we believe that mothers play a vital role. In fact, the most important role in the development of a child is from the parent because that's the first parent who sees the child at birth, and she's the one who carries the child for the duration of it, for that gestation, for that during the gestation period. So namhlanje ke ngoku intetha yethu will be focused on i-prematernal care and see is obviously during umcimbi we-delivery, then post-delivery. How do we then feed the child, then growth and development, and then we'll touch base on common practices because as the child grows, then kukho izigulo ezahlukeneyo ke esiXhoseni siba nazo nezigulo ekuthiwa umntana oneplate kuyeza leplate and stuff, but sizawufika kuloo ndawo but I was just introducing itopic yethu yanamhlanje into yokubana we were talking to a pediatrician ugqirha wabantwana who deals with children only. So Doc, mandingene kuwe Doc. Let's talk prematernal care. What is prematernal care?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Q. So, I think when I was given the slot, the concept that was introduced was baby care, and I thought baby care it doesn't only start when the child has been delivered and is there. A lot of care needs to be put into whilst the child is in utero. That definitely isn't a part of our specialty. We look at babies once they are born. However, the product that we receive at the end from the obstetricians is influenced a lot by what happens to the mother during delivery. So hence I thought it would be ideal for me to just start there when we speak baby care. Okay, so the first point is that when you establish that you are pregnant, there has to be a few lifestyle changes that need to occur kumam in ensuring that they actually protect the child. So the first trimester, which is the first 3 months of a mother's pregnancy, becomes quite crucial because there's a lot of things that happen there that will yield negative results in terms of the child. Most often these things don't show up immediately post-delivery, but they've got long-term effects in terms of how the child would be, especially specifically neurologically and otherwise. Okay. So once you establish that you are pregnant, lifestyle changes, because whatever you do impacts on the growth and development of the fetus, and in turn later on affects the child. So the first other thing that you need to do is routine antenatal care. Now, this means that once you establish that you're pregnant, you need to present yourself to a healthcare facility that offers antenatal care, be it a clinic or the closest district hospitals or whatever level of care in terms of the health facility, wherein they will slot you into a booklet to monitor your pregnancy, so that if there's anything that happens, because remember, it is you and it is the child, anything can happen between the two of you, so that that can be monitored and it can be corrected to avoid, obviously, the negative effects I was talking about. As part of the routine antenatal care, which are the visits, that is when you get your ultrasounds to look at the baby, how they are growing and all of that, because there are a lot of things that are congenital, which means izinto ozifumana umntana azifumanayo ese-in utero ezibonwayo during that time that can be corrected, or if kukhona izinto ezinokwenziwa, ii-interventions ezinokwenziwa emntaneni okhulayo zikhula ngaphakathi, zibonwa during that time. Two, during that time, they get to be started on supplements, no folate, no banman. That is obviously not a child's play, as much as it is assisting to the mother, but more to the child to avoid the congenital effects. And maybe I must just not mention them, but izinto ezizakwenza umntana aphume engekho right. So as a supplements that umama takes are part of preventative measures to say we don't want the child to develop certain things as anophuma nazo ezingekho right because shortelwa zezo supplements. Socially, omama abanye, especially in the childbearing age, they smoke, they drink alcohol. That kind of needs to take a stop immediately when you know that you are pregnant. Because obviously, just like as no they have got adverse effects as right on the child. There's a lot of, it is quite broad even that subject. They get a lot of things. They get cardiac problems, cognitive impairment, neurological issues, meaning in those affecting, they can get they can get izinto as affecting on, and even no cognitive impairment, how they perform in terms of their cognitive function generally, it gets affected. And I mean, this is just still in utero because it's a developing fetus, and the fetus gets to be a baby, so that needs to be taken care of. Some of other drugs are quite teratogenic, which means they are dangerous to the developing fetus, and as such, umntana aphume issues just because of those illicit drugs, smoking and alcohol and all of those other things. And obviously sexually, the fact that the child is already being formed or is developing in utero at the time does not mean now you need to be sexual in any way. You still need to protect, because a lot of sexually transmitted infections that you can cross through to the child during pregnancy. And as a result, some of those right, or sometimes are too right, kanti acquire as infections. And sometimes because of that, they've got prolonged stays in ICUs just post-delivery, just because you did not take care of your sexual life. This includes obviously HIV and many other conditions actually that are not necessarily just HIV, as that poses a different, a very a threat to the child's life and the development of the child. Amongst many other things, the emotional being of a mother. Emotional being of a mother, I'm mentioning it because it poses a great risk, and it makes abantwana babe prone to premature delivery. And premature delivery is not something, it's something that you want to prepare or to prevent at all costs, because it has got its own complications now, so it is not something you want, obviously, unless there really is a need. So the emotional well-being of a mother during pregnancy, stressors, social and psychosocial stresses that umama anoba nazo men's are prone to premature delivery, amongst others. I think, in summary, those are what I think is amongst the most important things to take yourself a pregnant mother. Very important, again, I'll emphasize, antenatal care means you attend all your needs by your patient or by wherever, your midwife or whoever you are following under a pregnancy. And then post-delivery, of course, there are certain risks as choreo, which aren't necessarily things that as a mother, I mean intrapartum as a mother, you
All right, Doc, can I interject?
Sure.
Sorry, Doc, ngicela ukungena nje kancane before uye ke ngokupost. Now, kukho izinto before ngingene apho. To the viewers and listeners, you can comment or ask any question on the comment section on your Facebook using your device, so that Udo can clarify. Maybe there's something that needs clarity. So you can join us in our conversation by asking any question or sharing your comment. Now, my question is, Doc, Masale, let's talk about, you made mention of supplements, where some mothers, I'm not sure if all mothers need to do that, to take supplements. Are there any recommended, or do you have any recommendations of the supplements, or where they can get them?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So, Mama would generally know the supplements are widely available on all healthcare facilities. Wherever you start your antenatal care, you will always be given vitamin B supplements and your folate. So those are the most important supplements that will help you prevent neurological issues that arise from supplements. So generally they are available as clinic, health centers, hospitals, and wherever you follow up, you are going to be given generally. And it is not something that usually we are short of, even in the state. It's something that is usually there. So those are the most important supplements. You are muted.
Okay, so thank you very much, Doc. For argument's sake, let's say now a mother is a disadvantaged mother. She cannot afford to go to a nearest clinic or any chemist, any medical facility to get the supplements. Do you have any food, type of food that you think or you can recommend to the mothers to cook at home, to prepare for themselves, that we can get the supplements, your vitamin B and stuff?
Okay, so I mean, there are. Let me first say this. I would not at any point recommend that umama angayi kwi-healthcare facility. That is one thing I need to make clear of. Because remember, I did say, you are not only going there to get the supplements. There's a lot of other surveillance that needs to happen. So if I would be saying to you, I'm accepting that you don't go there, then it means we are creating more problems. Secondly, even if I would advise on the food that you would eat, what's more important is the actual dosage of what you are going to get, which is essentially measured when you are given the tablets that you get especially. So I would not recommend, because I don't think dietary nutrition on its own is sufficient to cover for as supplements, as much as you would take whatever. But I mean, I think let's stick to the fact that I don't think you can do away with not going to a clinic. I'm saying this, obviously with the background understanding that yes, there are people who are actually disadvantaged. Abangena is a clinic that are close by, abangena health facilities that are close by. However, I don't think there's a health facility that would deny you giving you stock until the time where you are needed to be seen again, because you generally aren't seen every month in terms of follow up. I think generally they follow up on the basis of trimesters. Obviously, depending on whether you are high risk or not. I wouldn't really be sure we high risk but follow Sharanjani obstetricians. As I said, that's not my specialty. It's just that I needed to touch on it because I think it's quite important in the development and growth of the child. So, in summary, I think it is quite important that they follow up these mothers follow up with health facilities so that they can get the supplements because they are quite important for the child.
All right, so keep on now. Sex. Are you saying we should stop sex during gestation period or we should use protection?
Definitely not. Safe sex is, I'm not saying you must stop having sex, but I'm saying safe sex at all costs. Remember, there's this tendency of people making out that HIV is the only thing that you get through sexual intercourse. There's a lot of other sexually transmitted infections that you pass through when you do not practice safe sex, even during pregnancy. And I'm saying this becomes even more dangerous for the child because a lot of these infections that can cross through to the mother can actually cross through to the child. And the effects that it would have on the mother versus the effects it would have on the child aren't the same. So they generally would have dire effects on the child, more severe effects on the child, as opposed to the mother. So safe sex at all costs. I'm not saying you must stop having sex and continue the sex, but safe sex.
All right, then you can move forward to post-delivery now.
Okay, so post-delivery, what is important, firstly, there's what you call the Road to Health card, which is a card clinic that every child gets after they are registered post-delivery. That is a booklet for kids until until an age where they go beyond, I think, the ages of 6, 8-ish, or actually 12. That is a booklet that they need to keep and use because whatever it is that I am going to talk about is essentially there. That booklet was prepared solely so that even when you are at home, you are able to make use of it because it monitors the growth of the child in every way. So firstly, post-delivery, what becomes more important is that if you are delivered from a mother that is HIV positive as a child, or if you've got it, or if you deliver a child and you are HIV positive, then we term that child is RVD or retroviral disease exposed, right? And the risk of whether they are high risk or low risk depends on the viral load of the mother. So essentially what I was talking about, that whatever you do as a mother affects the child indirectly. So once you deliver a child and you're HIV positive, that we term that child is RVD exposed. So the risk is determined by the viral load of the mother. So if the mother has got a viral load of more than 20 copies, that child is termed a high-risk baby. And if the mother's viral load is below 20 copies, then that's a low-risk child. I'm mentioning this because prevention of mother-to-child transmission starts there, okay? So a mother that has a viral load of more than 20 copies, the baby needs to get 2 drugs as prophylaxis. which is your nevirapine and your AZT, versus a mother that delivers a child who the mother has a viral load of less than 20 copies, in which case they are fine with just one prophylactic drug. What becomes important is that as long as you are breastfeeding, you continue this prophylaxis. So the first one, which is if you are high risk and you're taking 2 drugs, so the nevirapine you take until 6 weeks post-sedation of your breastfeeding. So you take it until after 6 weeks wherein you have stopped breastfeeding. Then the other one, you stop it after a month. Okay, the AZT one. But generally, these are drugs that need to be taken. Similarly, so HIV and syphilis are the most predominant tests that you get screened out for as a mother and the child post-delivery. So even if you're a mother and you had syphilis or you screened out and you seem to have syphilis prior to delivery, for you to be fully treated, you must have received 3 doses of penicillin, PENG, and then those doses need to have been in at least more than a month prior to the child being delivered. Otherwise, you deem the child at a risk of contracting syphilis also. So they are screened out. If they are positive, they get treated. And then with the child, when they get delivered, you look at the symptoms. If they are asymptomatic, they are still given 1 dose of benzathine penicillin just to ensure that they are still covered. Unless, of course, they are symptomatic, in which case they are investigated and fully treated. I'm not sure if I'm making sense there. You are muted.
You are, but yes, you are making sense, Doc. You are making sense, but unfortunately, I can't remember all the names. The name of the medicine you've been mentioning. You are making sense. Yes.
Yeah, I think basically what I'm trying to emphasize with this point is that no child that is delivered to an HIV positive mother should contract HIV because you have not actually adhered to what you need to take as a mother, which means all of the drugs that I've mentioned, generally you are bound to get them, especially because people know healthcare facilities or healthcare professionals know what to give when. Now, what is for you as a mother is that you ensure that this child gets this medication. And I'm saying the nevirapine needs to be given at least until 6 weeks after you stop breastfeeding. So generally, other mothers tend to stop it after the initial bottle that they got gets finished. Now, the disadvantage to that is that the child can seroconvert even though they were delivered with the initial test. Because remember, when they get delivered, Namandwana, they get tested to see did they not contract whatever in utero. And if it's negative, that's fine. They still continue to take the prophylaxis. So the danger of not actually taking the prophylaxis is that during the time where they continue breastfeeding, they can seroconvert, which means even though they were negative on delivery, but because they've continued to take to breastfeed and not take prophylaxis, then they might seroconvert. Because generally, omama who tend not to give abandoned prophylaxis, it's one of 2 reasons. Either they don't know that they should give, or themselves they are not taking the prophylaxis, they're not taking the ARVs in the right manner. So it is one of the 2. So hence it becomes important that they know you need to still be compliant in your treatment, but also give the child the prophylaxis until 6 weeks after you stop breastfeeding the child. And
All right, Doc. Now, you mentioned a very important thing, which is breastfeeding. Currently we have a problem of, in fact, not a problem, but a challenge, I would say, of child pregnancy. The young girls are getting pregnant while they are still at school. So they go and give birth, then they are back at school in just 2 days or 3 days. Now, when we talk about the importance of breastfeeding, advantages and disadvantages of breastfeeding, I hope I make sense. My question makes sense.
Yeah. So generally, I would not even limit it to just teenage or young people who are pregnant. I mean, even young adults who are working also would face the same challenge, because ultimately they need to go back to work at some point. And we always advocate that a child gets exclusively breastfed for 6 months, regardless of whatever, which means that we advocate that for 6 months, that is the only thing they should be taking. They don't need to be supplemented feeds. They don't need to they don't need Cerelac, they don't need 6 months is enough. Okay, so the advantages would be that firstly, breastfeeding is cheap. Let's talk about that, and it is readily available. You don't need to go buy anything from somewhere. You don't need to. It is there. It is readily available. Breast milk is readily available. It's cheap. It's available. Secondly, the risks of infections or transferring infections via breast milk are reduced versus preparing bottles and contaminating and giving inadequate caloric intakes for abandon. So breast milk in itself has got protective effects to the brain of the child, of the developing child. Breast milk in itself it has been proven that kids who get exclusively breastfed, a good outcome in terms of their cognitive function, even sebekhulile. Njengoba umbreastfeed umntwana, kanti umreduce i-cognitive function yakhe, because breast milk provides it. And thirdly, abantwana aba-breastfed, they get protective effects from the breast milk. There are certain things within the breast milk as the protector umntwana from getting sick all the time from recurrent infections, because breast milk contains ezo zinto ezo that create a protective barrier for the child oba angasoloko egula okokoko. Kanti umntana ongabreastfeedwanga, you don't get those protective effects, and as a result, bathanda ukugula, they have recurrent chest problems and all of that, and purely because abazifumenanga as a nutrient. Thirdly, the composition of breast milk has been studied, and it has been seen that it contains izinto zonke ezinidwa ngumntana. They don't need to be supplemented on anything when they're on breast milk. So it is one thing that we stand for and advocate for, that breastfeeding, breast milk, exclusive breastfeeding within the first 6 months. Then after 6 months, you can introduce your solid feeds or soft diet, or whatever that you need to introduce. But first 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding. And sometimes kuyathanda ukuthi omama bathi hayi andibreastfeedanga because common excuses would be breastfeedanga because ibisi lam khange liphume. Yeah, we do acknowledge that sometimes, because of a lot of other things that affect the mother, again, they might struggle with breastfeeding, but there are maneuvers and techniques to assist the mother, especially whilst they are still in hospital, to try and express and breastfeed. Okay, even drugs to assist the mother to try and breastfeed. Then these are clear subjects. When they need to go back to school, what happens? When they need to go back to work, what happens? So now there is a concept of expressive breastfeeding. So wherein during the time where you are at home and you are sitting there, you ensure that usebenzisa utensils clean zomntana, ukhame ebele, and store that so that whoever takes care of the child when you're not there, they can still continue to give breast milk. And one thing I didn't mention is that obviously breastfeeding in itself creates a tighter bond between the mother and the child. Now, if obviously circumstances aren't allowing it, mhlawumbe it's school, be it work, be it whatever, you can still express, store it in a clean place, warm it for the child to be in the adequate temperature, so that umntana ahlale efumana i-breast milk noba wena ukho semsebenzini okanye usesikoleni, whatever the case may be. I don't know if I captured that.
No, Doc. I'm comfortable. I'm very comfortable. Let me welcome everyone who's just joined us. This is Wesley SA. We have our guest today who is Dr. Ngukwana, a pediatrician. He's giving us advice and wisdom on how to take care of our children, specifically young children, infants, developing to adolescents and teenagers. Now, if you just joined us, he has alluded to prematernal care, and now we're talking about post-delivery. I'm not sure, it's not a question, I'm not sure if it's a question or whatever, but let's talk delivery now, Doc. There are perceptions that natural birth is better than the surgery and stuff. Do you have a comment on that one?
Hey, tonight it seems like I'm talking a lot of obstetrics than my pediatrics, but anyway, so this would be a factual opinion. Natural delivery, at all costs, will always be preferred, especially for long-term effects. Remember, if you deliver naturally, even it denotes the pain to be extremely excruciating, but it's a quick pain that goes away. And there's less risks of getting complications and infections. Obviously, they are there. Generally, cesarean sections are reserved for when you have complications or you are anticipating a complication, or you have a mother who has had multiple complications and has had multiple cesarean sections, such that if you take them in so that they can't deliver naturally, because of the complications. Remember, if you get cut and get opened in your abdomen for whatever reason, you are at a risk of having adhesions, which means because of that, and that puts you at risk of complications. So remember now, if you cut open and you go down to the uterus, you cut the uterus open, you still need to suture it back. And once you suture it back, there are chances that njengoba isuturisha back, ultimately uhealisha kwayo ingathi nxa kwibladder okanye ithi nxa kwenye part where it is not supposed to be because of whatever maneuvers that were done there. So this means that you get to be at a risk of a lot of complications. Number two, is cesarean sections associated with a long stay in the hospital? Because once you perform a cesarean, a minimum of 3 days at least you need to spend it hospital. That means you're at a risk for other hospital-acquired infections that you can potentially get. And remember that, unfortunately, that is a wound. And I mean, the pain that is associated with it means it's not going to go away now, because I mean, that's a wound after all. So it means you have you are going to have a prolonged history, prolonged state of being in pain from a scissor scar. Also, you are now putting yourself at a risk of actually getting a scar that is going to be there for quite some time, forever, in fact. And that depends on even the surgeon in itself, as a labor, as a scar. Also, cesarean sections, remember, if you're going to go for a cesarean section, either you need analgesia for that. So either you're going to get a needle at the back or they're going to make you sleep. So obviously that also has its own complications versus just delivering naturally. Now there are even, I mean, if you, obviously this might not be offered with government hospitals, I don't know, but with private natural delivery can even get means of analgesia whilst you are delivering naturally. So in essence, in summary, for me, natural delivery always preferred because it is not, as you say, it's natural. That is how it's supposed to be. The other one is unnatural. And I mean, if it's unnatural, it means it comes with its own things. You reserve it to have it when it's needed. Okay. But obviously it has gotten to be a preference thing, especially for people who have got medical aids and will deliver in private, wherein they will say, I can't withstand the pain of delivering naturally. I would rather go do a Caesar. I mean, no one opposes that. And obviously they are done by their obstetricians in private, and that's fine. But it doesn't make it the actual right thing that should be happening. Okay. So I think the one, yeah, let me stop there with that before I say something else.
So no problem. Moving now, post delivery, let's talk feeding the child. Now the child is here. How
Yeah,
do we
so
feed the child now?
yeah, so as I said, the first 6 months, what's more important, exclusive breastfeeding. After 6 months, you can introduce your solid feeds, your soft diet. Preferably, this should be something that is nutritious. So, for example, you can blend things for the child. You can give boiled and blend fruits and vegetables like your pumpkins and whatever, any of these soft vegetables. You can even blend your broccolis and all of those things because those are nutritious. So you need to factor in that whatever it is that you are giving should be nutritious to the child. It should not be diet that is not rich in protein because this puts a child at a risk of what you call protein energy malnutrition, wherein they get a lot of, because you are constantly giving a certain type of diet, for example, a diet that is rich in carbohydrates, and you think, I also thought if you just do this, taste to eat, I mean, it's literally the same thing. You're giving carbohydrates to the child, and that diet is less rich in protein. So in that, you put the child at risk of what you call protein energy malnutrition. Laa nto kudala kwakuthiwa ikwashiorkor okanye laa nto wherein they get deficient of a lot of protein. Badumbe, they get dermatitis, baphilisha skin, and they get a lot of other complications that happen in the bloodstream, electrolyte disturbances and all of that. That is not right for the child. It is quite common, especially where I am from in the Eastern Cape. I thought when I got here it will be less, but I've seen quite a few of abantwana malnutrition even here. So it is still there, even though it has reduced, but it is still there. Okay. So diet yakho should be balanced for umntana, even though you are giving the soft diet, should be balanced moving throughout. I think overall throughout as they grow. So it should not only be rich in carbohydrates. We do acknowledge that because of socio-economic backgrounds and these data is one opts to give what you think is going to make the child full. I do need to make mention of the fact that even after 6 months, we don't say you can't breastfeed. You can still continue breastfeeding because milk on its own contains a high protein content, so that even if you can't factor in that in your diet, at least the child continues to get that. Okay. Yeah, so the diet then advances as the child grows, and the nutritional requirements, obviously, as the child grows. So, however, I think the summary of it all, that the diet in itself, especially after the infancy period, should be balanced still. So this means it needs to have your vitamins, minerals, it needs to have your proteins, yes, it needs to have your carbohydrates. So it should essentially be a balanced diet, okay? Because any deficiency in any of these micronutrients ezifumaneka kwezinto endithetha ngazo ziyamanifest emntwaneni ngendlela ezi-different, yabo. Yeah.
Oh, all right,
It's-
now,
it's a fairly huge topic on its own into nutrition in a child. And maybe one other day where we have the time, I would focus on it, but it is as it is.
all right. Speaking of common diseases, you made mention of kwashiorkor, formerly known what deficiency of protein, what of these are becoming relevant. But I'm not sure if my question is within your scope, but if then it's not, then you just tell me. Let's talk, there's this thing that is common, which is affecting Abantwana these days, autism. Are there any early signs at an early age that your child will be autistic, where it is so that parents can then prepare themselves, start looking for special schools and all that? And get even, because if a parent is working, then that means he'll need or she'll need someone who is maybe trained even to take care of the child when he or she is not around, if you get what I'm trying to say. Are there early signs of autism?
Okay, so generally, that's also a very broad topic, but I do want to say that autism on its own is not a disease. It's an inherent condition. It's in their nature. It's not something that you are going to get or you get. Generally, it is in their genetic makeup that they are like that. Okay, so it is a portion. I thought I was going to actually make mention of it when I speak of development and behavioral issues, because it's a portion of your development. So it is a behavioral, or it is regarded as part of behavioral disorders within the pediatric parameters. So generally, it says, as you say, it's not just autism; it's an autism spectrum disorder. So it means it's a wide range of behavioral things that they would have or present with, and it is almost or mostly associated with ezinye disorders, your attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is your ADHD. However, it does occur obviously on its own, isolated. It's a portion of it's the behavior, the way they do things becomes different, and it is influenced by their genetic makeup. Most kids will let me not say most, but kids will generally vary in terms of how they are going to be. So some will just be mildly autistic, moderate, and some could be severely autistic, which impairs their functioning and how they will behave in terms of their activities of daily living. So generally, abantwana they tend to have a lot of abnormal repetitive movements, even at a younger age, which we tend not to see. But when they like to do things in a certain way and over and over again. They like to be socially withdrawn from other kids, and they tend to want to play board as opposed to playing with other kids. They don't do well with being in a space where there's abantu abaningi, and sometimes because they are uncomfortable being in those environments, they react and, excuse me, they have what most people would deem or term as outbursts. And in essence, they are retaliating to the uncomfortable environment abakuyo. Mhlawumbe umntana umbone mhlawumbe abanee-tantrums okanye bekwispace mhlawumbe secaweni, and they have abrupt behaviors that are not understood. Bade abantu babakhuphe okanye kuthi mawumkhutshele phandle okanye athini okanye lo mntana akaqeqeshi ubani okanye sile abantwana bakhe, kanti umntana this is just something that is in his nature, because they don't do well with being in public space or wherein there are a lot of other people. Sometimes when it gets severe, they can't actually do the simplest things that they would need to do. They need to actually be trained. Abantwana must at a certain age, they need to be potty trained. Umntana ayazi uba ufuna uyothintini, but because bona, they are not like that, they get kind of delayed and need to be trained to do those things. Umbona umntana uba okay, why engade akwazi uba trained to uba sifanele abe trained to, obviously depending on the severity of the spectrum in itself. Nango esikoleni uyazitoilethela, uyathinti. And even in the cognitive part of it, academically, angafuna uthatha instructions kude kuthiwe nasesikoleni usile omiss but umntana usile and or angakwazi ukufollowisha the instructions that are given at the time. So there is also just, I need to say, there's a thin line between all of these behavioral issues that occur within the child, ranging from to your intellectual disability and your ADHD and all of these spectrums, behavioral issues. But in essence, they have those kind of behaviors that you can look out for.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. Now, the time now is 3 minutes before 7 o'clock. We're supposed to wrap up at 7, but the topic now is getting heated. So, please, Doc, bear with us a few more minutes. Do you have any further comments on the growth and development of a child? Because I made in fact, before we do that, let me apologize to everyone who believes that I was a bit insensitive. Or not a bit insensitive, but sensitive when I told autism a disease. My apologies, please pardon me. Now, Doc, do you have a comment on growth and development of a child? Any other comment?
I think part of the things I wanted to highlight, which is quite important, is the concept of, before I speak on the growth and development, the concept of immunization in the child. Right from the time they get the first one post-delivery until the end. So essentially, I think for me, it is just to emphasize the importance of that, because a lot of diseases have been combated because people studied the causative organisms of ezo zifo ezo to say, okay, if for example, the concept flu, or flu, for me to help you not get the flu or be immune to the flu because it's caused by a particular virus, let me give you a strain of that virus so that your body gets accustomed or it gets immune to the flu. So it works exactly like that. Those are strains of different bugs that cause different conditions of learning that you give them so that they become immune, so that they are at less risk of getting those particular infections, because they were at some point a problem in the community. Polio, measles, and they were a problem. And those are highly infectious diseases. As the spread cause intoba kube kugula abantwana abaninzi nabantu abaninzi, with a resultant poor outcome in terms of abantwana. So zonke ezazigomo umntana afanele uyazifumana, they need to be attended to at the right time. Failing which, if you did not get, for whatever reason, umntana begula during the time, whatever, they need to catch up to ensure that they actually get ezo zinto. I think recently kule nto yoba abantwana abantu, foreign nationals actually, this whole conversation about foreign nationals who are not registered and all of that. I think I need to say that just from myself, the risk of not, because I did see a report that there are health facilities that have opted not to give abantwana foreign nationals immunization, which I don't think is the right thing that should be happening, because unfortunately, infection will not just be limited to Lomdan, whether you're a foreign national or not. Unfortunately, it will get to spread and so generally, I'm emphasizing the importance of regular immunization. Zonke immunizations zomntana. We generally tend to check here to see about that. Because they are quite important. So do you mean says you run a risk of getting certain illnesses based on whatever that you have missed on its own? And then in terms of your growth and development, what I wanted to make mention of is that in the Road to Health card booklet, different ages zomntana, and it has been simplified to look at certain things that a child at a particular age is supposed to be able to do. And it's got graphs like what to say we are plotting you to say, are you growing well? But just for the sake of Omama Abasika, they need to look at the book versus what their child can do now. At 6 months, Umdana is supposed to be able to sit without support, and you see that your child is unable to sit without support at a particular age. Or as long as I know that a child is supposed to be doing at that age, because they are written there in the book, then you must act early so that if there are things that are reversible, remember, a manifestation is for Zamandwan and other things. Ayifani noma umntana omdala ezawuyazi uba inoba kwenzeka ntoni. Umntana ubona engakhuli kahle kanti there's something underlying that can be corrected. So they need to monitor umntana strictly growth based on these parameters that are there to say they are in simple, they're even written in Xhosa on whatever other language to say at a certain age umntana needs to be able to do A, B, C, and D. And if your child is unable to do that, then you need to be worried. Go up and say, just go to the nearest health facility to say, umntana akwazi ukwenza into ethile kule particular age ethile. However, I need to say that generally, as our parameters, they have an age or a reference age, even those below 6 months, but they've got an age. Sometimes you give a leeway for between 6 months and 9 months, even though it's written at 6 months, to say at a particular age you are supposed to be able to do this, but you give a range wherein you say at a particular month, and if you're not able to do it, then that is what it needs to be investigated. So, as a mom, you need to be up wena uhambe uyoyijonga that umntana akakwazi ukwenza into ethile ngoku, and that is a worry, because ngokwale ncwadi befanele uyakwazi ukwenza into ethile. Okay, so that needs to be monitored strictly, not only just by the healthcare professional. Generally, when you get to a health facility, that's part of the things that need to be checked for umntana. I-weight zakhe, uyakhula, i-height yakhe, and all the other parameters of growth and development, so that if it is a red flag, then it can be sent up your investigator. Generally, even if umama pick up land, if umama kodwa uyahamba i-clinic visits zakhe zimkhoma, onesi clinic, they tend to do those parameters, and if they are worrisome, then they would refer you for further investigation if you need to be investigated. So I think that's just what I wanted to say when it comes to those things.
All right, Doc. Thank you very much. One last question because of time now, Doc. Let's talk common practices, Doc. Thina siXhoseni laa nto bendike ndayithetha kuwe sineento zethiwa sizenzayo umntana kuthiwe siyomkhangelela iyeza lepleyiti nazo zonke ezo zinto ezo. Ngokwesayensi, using the science, is it preventable? Is those things, andiyazi ipleyiti izawuthi yintoni ke, igama lesingesi ngalo lesiXhosa into iyeza lepleyiti.
And that's
So
what
is it
break
preventable? All right. I'm saying, Doc, eXhoseni thina sinezaa nto those common practices zoba siphume sithi siyokhangela iyeza lepleyiti and so on and so forth. Now, I want to know, ezinto zamayeza epleyiti, are they preventable? Where umntana ke ngoku can be immunized in as far as ukuyofunela la mayeza epleyiti and other things that you may know. Like in a nutshell, ngathi loo nto leyo, ezi common practices sizenza emakhaya thina.
Okay, okay. So I do need to say that there's essentially a lot of practices, and these practices involve ukunikwa komntana medication. That's one thing for sure. Abantwana bayathanda medication that is not even regulated based on perceptions. Okay, so perception number one being le nto ye-plate. And most often, if you investigate and want to understand what is the concept of a plate, how do we form by doing? However, what I've made up from most mothers who come in bethetha ngento on a plate, generally, iba ngabantwana abane-colic, wherein they become just acutely sick, babe shushu, babhenapene, bangathi bayaganjela, bastrakisha ukuthoyiletha, bathini. And I always, whenever you ask that, I always get that. So I assumed that is what a plate is. However, I can't tell you by doing it. So there's a concept here in the colic. Colic is a thing, and umntana when a colic, exactly presents like that. They get abdominal pains, abe irritable, I think that's where most people tend to want to seek for iyeza leplate okanye iyeza lomoya okanye whatever people choose to call it. I think KZN yayibizwa ntoni, sayikhumbule ngoba ndisenza phaa kodwa yayinto enjalo. Now the risks of seeking, I mean, I'm not overlooking the concept of traditional medicine. It is there. It is, we want to actually incorporate and engage and see what we can do best for our patients, but people do believe in it and people do use it. And so if they do, then we need to actually look at it and see what is there. I think those things are still under the pipeline if they will ever happen. Now, the risk yokunika umntana la mayeza is that you would note that amayeza abanikwa abantwana abaneplate abayi-1 ayingomayeza afanayo. That's number one. Amayeza are different. Sukendana is different. The measurements are completely different. We don't know the ingredients that are in there and how much of what you give is in there, which becomes quite toxic. Most of lamayas are quite toxic to organs zabantwana abasakhulayo. Umntana othe-colic anikwe lamayeza, the next thing they develop diarrhea, and from diarrhea babe volume depleted, ba-complicate and ba-complicated to ufelelwa zizibindi, ufelelwa zizintso. It becomes a downward trajectory. I do want to say that abantu ke napha ekhaya, they always say ezinto wawuzityisiwe nawe, wawuzisilisiwe nawe, kwakuthini. And I can't answer for what they gave me, and unfortunately I have no evidence of what I was given and how it was given. But I can testify that a lot of kids lose their lives purely because umntana bene-colic wanikwa la mayeza, okanye bengenakwanto, ufumanisa uba bengenakwanto, okanye umntana betida bephuma amazinyo, unobushushu wagula ngenxa yaloo nto leyo, and then the next thing they get given this medication. I think they are fully emphasizing though, these are not medications that are regulated. And because they're not regulated, you don't know how much of what you are giving, and you don't know what it causes. You don't know the side effects of it. You can't even prevent it. But from my history and practice, a lot of kids get to end up in ICUs and high care, in critical care areas because of amayeza plate. And it is not nice, because akukho nice ubona umntana efailelwa sisibindi where you know that you can't replace it. And it completely dies off. And when you're in conversation with the mother, get to understand, but hey, lo mntana bengenanto but uvele watshityelwa ngeyeza leplate, and it was a downward trend from there on. So I am not saying there's anything wrong with traditional medicine that is being used, but I am, however, saying if we are managing a child and you are following up somewhere, and there's something that is unusual, rather you try and seek for early medical assistance and see if it will not help now, as opposed to just opting to go directly there, because most of these kids, they tend to come back to us after a plate for a long time, and unfortunately by the time they get here, there's nothing that we can do. So whereas I'm specifying this particular one here as a plate, because I know it is such a common thing, especially in the Eastern Cape. Omama bayiselisa kakhulu ezele plate nomoya nale nto. And I mean, we if there is a particular thing that you note when uthetha ngeplate nomoya, noted, you tend to see a trend that this is essentially colic, and it can be managed because it is not essentially a sickness. It is part of umdala or kulaya. It is nothing that is outside of this world. And then I just want to say two to three other things to say. There are certain warning signs for a child or kulaya. It's normal for a child to get in chest infection or whatever, a cough. But whenever your child starts breathing fast and they start breathing uncomfortable with fever and all of that, that's a warning sign, not only for you to go to a clinic, but to rush to a center where something can be done if you're done yet to compensate. For your cough and whatever fever at the time, you can go to a clinic and that's fine. Once they start breathing fast, then that's an indication for you not only to go just to a clinic but to a hospital. Similarly to abantwana diarrhea and I mean, initially there are things that you can do when a child has diarrhea. It's in the same book, the sugar salt solution. It's how you mix it is still there. You can give the child, but if they are persistent, they are not taking. They've got poor feeding. They've lethargic, flat. Obviously, that's an indication that something is quite wrong, and you don't want to wait until then. Then you need to seek for medical help. And any child who has a seizure, you can't keep the child at home. Take the child to a closest health center. If it is your clinic so that you can be referred to where appropriate. Okay. Can you mean we would talk about appropriate health-seeking behaviors, because it does not only affect Omama Bantwana, but generally, I think all of us have a different understanding of the systems of health and how you can seek for health and the behaviors that you would use when you are seeking for help. But it's a subject for another day.
Thank you very much for making time for us. The time now is past 7. It's time to let you go. Thank you very much for making time, and believe you me, we'll ask you to come again, because as you've just alluded, your department, your specialty is very broad, so we cannot talk about or discuss everything in just an hour. So please, when you knock emnyango kuwe again, mvule Mfondini, mvule.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, siyabukela ambolinda ngoku iKaizer Chiefs izawutya iSundowns ngoku in the next few minutes.
Bye, Put.
All right, thank you very much to our viewers and listeners. The time now is 7:15, so we are done with today's conversation. Thank you very much to the administrators of the Wesley Gill page for understanding that knowledge, yes, knowledge is power, but it is not power until it is put into use. So the knowledge we just acquired is we should applaud the administrators of the Wesley Gill page. Obviously, once you get pregnant, there are changes in your life. And change is very uncomfortable, but it is necessary. So please change. Once you know that you are pregnant, change your lifestyle. kodwa uyicacise uyibeke yacaca ke loo nto leyo. Change is uncomfortable ke siyayazi loo nto leyo, but it is necessary. And we should all understand that every level of our lives demands a new you. So once you are pregnant, that means you are another level. So that will definitely demand a new you. Let us always have the hunger to know better, because when we know better, then we should do better. Because when you know better, everyone around you becomes better. In closing, let us always remember once again, the future is not some place we are headed, but it is what we are making every day. And the route to that future changes both the maker and the destination. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lutzen.